Hello, can you hear me?
Great, thank you, Rabbi Leff.
Okay. Let me know when you want me to start.
Now is great, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I thought that we'd speak about Sfiras HaOmer, what at least one perspective of it is. One of the ideas behind Sfiras HaOmer is the fact that when we left Mitzrayim, we knew already that the end of 50 days, our freedom would be complete when we received the Torah. How did they know that? Because Moshe Rabbeinu was told that when they leave Mitzrayim, Ba'otzias ha'ami Mitzrayim, ta'avdu nesu Elokim ala har hazeh. Moshe Rabbeinu was told by the snare, by the burning bush, that when they left Mitzrayim, they would serve Hashem on this mountain. And the word ta'avdu has an extra nun, ta'avdun. The nun is 50. So they were hinted to that in 50 days after they left Mitzrayim, they received the Torah. So they counted and prepared for 50 days for Kabbalas HaTorah. There's only one problem. If you have a course that you want to prepare for, so you usually have orientation, where you're given a synopsis of the course, maybe a textbook to leaf through, the syllabus of the course. That's how you prepare for the course. But they had no idea what the Torah was. How do I know that? Because Chazal made such a big deal about Nasa v'Nishma that they accepted the Torah sight unseen, unheard. So if they knew what the Torah was, what was the big deal? So they must have not had an idea what the Torah contained. So how do you prepare for that? One question. Second question. We, in this time, are mourning for the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, who died during this time. Tremendous tragedy, 24,000 Talmidim. But there were other tragedies in Jewish history of a greater magnitude, perhaps, that we don't mourn. We don't have any one day of mourning for them. In the time of Yanai HaMelech, he killed out the entire Sanhedrin, all the Gedolim of his time. We don't mourn for them. These were not the Talmidim, these were the Gedolim. Hordus HaMelech, likewise, killed out all the Sanhedrin of his time. And we don't mourn for them. So why do we mourn specifically 33 days for the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva and don't include it in the mourning for all of tragedies of Klal Yisrael and Tisha B'Av? In order to understand this, let's start with the following. Chazal tell us, if they tell you Torah, Chochma Bagoyim Tamim, somebody tells you that wisdom, Chochma, exists by the nations of the world, believe them. Torah Bagoyim Al Tamim. But if somebody tells you that Torah exists by the nations of the world, don't believe them. Now, that can't be understood simply, that it's impossible for a Goy to learn Torah, because I'm sure that a Goyish nuclear physicist could open an art scroll Chumash and make heads and tails of it. Elamai, a Goy is not allowed to learn much of Torah. So if somebody tells you that Goyim learn Torah when they're not supposed to, don't believe them. Why not? Goyim do a lot of things they're not supposed to do. In fact, as part of the curriculum in Catholic seminaries for priests, they learn Torah. And there was even a priest, Danby, who wrote a commentary on the Mishnah. So what does it mean? Torah Bagoyim Al Tamim, impossible. What I think it means is the following. Bertram Russell was a professor of ethics in City College in New York in the 1940s. And during that period of his life, he did many unethical things. He was an avowed communist, and he didn't believe in marriage. He believed in free love, which was considered immoral even by the Goyim at that time. So the ethics committee of the college called him in, and they said, Professor Russell, we have a problem with you. You teach ethics in our institution, and you're not ethical. He said, what's the problem? I used to teach mathematics in a school in England 20 years ago, and I taught geometry. Not once did the ethics committee of that college call me in and say, Professor Russell, we have a problem with you. You teach geometry in our institution, and you are not a circle, a square, or a parallelogram. I don't have to be what I teach. I don't have to be a plane to teach geometry. I don't have to be ethical to teach ethics. That's Chochmah. Chochmah is something that a person possesses. It doesn't necessarily have to have any impact on his character, his personality, or his behavior. You can be a nuclear scientist and be a maneuver. You can be a president of the United States or prime minister of Great Britain or anything, any great chacham, and still be a maneuver. You don't have to be. There were many great chachamim amongst the goyim whose chachma did affect their personality, and they were very fine people, but it didn't have to. If their personality left a lot to be desired, that didn't detract from their chachma, and their chachma didn't necessarily have to add anything to their personality, character, or behavior. But Torah is not like that. The Gemara says, Torah, as its name implies, Torah is horah, it teaches, it guides. Divrei Torah nimsholim ke'esh. Torah is compared to fire. Ma'esh osarosha, maf Torah osarosha. Just like fire makes an impression, it burns. So too, Torah has to make an impression on the person. And if it doesn't, then it's not Torah. And the way to ensure that Torah can possibly make an impression on you is by working on your midos and working on your Derech Eretz. Because Derech Eretz Kadma Latorah. As the Rabbeinu Yonah says in Pirkei Avos, Im ein Derech Eretz ein Torah, lo yishkon ha-Torah la'olam, v'misha ein bo midos tovos. Torah can never reside by a person who doesn't have midos tovos. The Torah can't become part and parcel of the person. And that is what Torah has to be. It has to mesh with the fiber of the person and make him a living Sefer Torah. The Gemara says in Makos, Kama tipshoi sharinshi, how foolish people are. The kame nikme Sefer Torah, below kame nikme gavarabba. They stand up for a Sefer Torah, but they don't stand up for a Talmud Chacham. The Sefer Torah is dead parchment with dead ink, locked in an Aron Kodesh a whole week. What's the purpose of that Torah? That a human being, a Jew, should learn it and become a living Sefer Torah. So people stand up for the dead Sefer Torah, but they don't stand up for the living Sefer Torah. So that's what a Torah has to be, something that makes you a living Sefer Torah. And therefore, it's impossible for there to be Torah unless the person starts with Derech Eretz and Midos Tovos, because otherwise the Torah can't possibly make an impression on him. There's only one problem. Unfortunately, there are people, and were people, who had a lot of Torah, but somehow their Midos and Derech Eretz was very much lacking. So some say, well, look how much worse they would have been if they hadn't have Torah. That's not an answer. Rabbeinu Yonah says categorically, Lo yishkon ha-Torah la'olam v'misha ein bo midos tov. It can't be. So how could it be that we see that it can be? So I think an answer could be the following. You know, by weddings, at least on the men's side, there's a liquid you can pour on your hat and light it on fire, and the hat doesn't burn, and the person underneath the hat doesn't end up getting burnt. It's a cold flame. It's what they call stage fire. Looks like fire, smells like fire, sounds like fire, but it's not real fire. How do I know? It doesn't burn anything. Similarly, you can have stage Torah. Looks like Torah, sounds like Torah, and it smells like Torah, but it's not real Torah. How do I know? Because it doesn't make an impression on the person who learned it and who is espousing it. So it's fake fire. It's stage Torah. It's not real Torah. That's what the Rabbeinu Yonah says. Lo yishko na Torah la'olam. The Torah can never reside and become part of a person if he doesn't have midos tovos. It'll remain chachma, but it won't be Torah. That's why on a secular genius, chacham, mechachmei umos ha'olam, or even a Jewish secular chacham, Einstein, you had to make a bracha. You came in contact with him. The bracha was asher cholak asher nosan mechachmaso lebasar v'dam. The Rebbe Shem gives from his wisdom to flesh and blood. He gives it, no strings attached, no conditions. Do what you want with it, and you remain flesh and blood. But a Talmid Chacham is a different bracha. Asher cholak mechachmaso liyareyav. The Rebbe Shem apportions out his wisdom. He doesn't separate himself from it. He comes along with it. And he only gives it liyareyav to people who have Yerushalayim, not Stam. So that's the difference between Chochmah and Torah. If someone tells you that the concept of Chochmah exists by the nations of the world, they understand the concept of Chochmah, believe them. But the concept of Torah, that in order for that Chochmah to be Chochmah, it has to influence, impact on the fiber of the person who possesses it. Chochmah, they understand, is something you possess. But Torah is something that has to possess you. That they don't understand. That concept doesn't exist by the nations of the world. And the way to ensure that Torah can possibly have an effect on the person, and if the person wants it to have that effect, then mitosha lo lishma bo lishma, even if he's not totally a living Sefer Torah now, but he's on the path, he wants that to be the result, then the Torah that he learns little by little becomes part of him in his Torah. But if he's not interested in that at all, he doesn't work on his midos, doesn't work on his Derech Eretz, and therefore is the kind of person who's like asbestos. Asbestos fire can't have any impression on it. It makes no impression on it. If you're asbestos, then you can never get Torah. So could be that's the reason why the Goyim didn't get the Torah. Famous Chazal that the Rabbanim Shem offered the Torah first to Bnei Esav. They asked what's in it. So the Rabbanim Shem said, it says, Lo sirtzach, you can't murder. They said, how can we have a Torah that says you can't murder? When we have a bracha from Yitzchak Avinu, al char b'chatichya. We live by the sword. How can we have a Torah that says you can't murder? The Rabbanim Shem left them. He went to Yishmael. They also asked, what's in it? The Rabbanim Shem said, it says you can't steal, or signal. They said, how can we have a Torah that says you can't steal? We have a bracha from a malach. Yado v'kol v'yad kol bo. Our hands in everybody's pocket and their hands in our pocket. How can we have a Torah that says you can't steal? The Rabbanim Shem left them. He came to Klal Yisrael, and we said, Na'aseh v'nishma. It always bothered me. The Goyim didn't say no. They said they had a problem. Why didn't the Rabbanim Shalom explain to them why there's no problem? He should have told Bnei Esav that which it says that you live by the sword doesn't mean you have a right to murder people. It means that you'll be excellent soldiers, mercenaries, soldiers of fortune. People will hire you to fight their battles in wartime. That's not murder. That's being soldiers of fortune. Not that you have a license to murder. You'll be good soldiers and be able to win battles and be paid for it. Why didn't the Rabbanim Shem explain that to them and then say to them, well, now, do you want the Torah or not? Same thing with Yishmael. Yodo Bakol V'Yad Kol Bo doesn't mean they have a license to pickpocket. It means the Targum says that since the Arabs are nomads, they need the whole world for their base to supply their basic needs. But the whole world needs them also. Today we understand that for oil. Why didn't the Rabbanim Shem explain that to them? And then ask them, okay, now there's no conflict between your bracha, Yodo Bakol V'Yad Kol Bo, and Lo Signo, do you want the Torah or not? I think a possible answer could be, there are other answers, but a possible answer could be that a nation that thinks that they have a license to murder or a license to steal shows that they don't have the basic midos tovos, the basic derech eretz of a human being. And without that, it's impossible to be makabel the Torah. There's nothing to talk about. And in fact, the reason that we receive the Torah, the reason why Avraham Avinu was chosen to be the father, the progenitor of the nation that would receive the Torah, is not because he was the greatest tzaddik, nor because he was the greatest chacham. He may have been, but that wasn't the reason. The Torah says the reason. Ki yadati, because I know him well. Asher yitzave es bonav es beiso achrav lishmor derech Hashem la'asos tzedako mishpat. I know that Avraham Avinu will instruct his children and those that come after him to guard the way of Hashem. Says the Rambam in Mishnah Torah and Hilchos Deos. What is Derech Hashem that Avraham will teach his children to guard? Midos Tovos. He'll teach them Derech Eretz. He'll teach them Midos Tovos. And therefore, they'll be able to be makabel the Torah. Because in Ein Derech Eretz, Ein Torah, Torah can never be Torah. It can only remain Chachma. So that answers our first question. What were they preparing? They weren't preparing the body of knowledge of Torah. They had no idea what it was. But they were preparing themselves, preparing their midos, their derech eretz, that when the Torah was given, it could make an impression. They were preparing themselves not to be asbestos, where the fire of Torah couldn't make an effect on their personal lives. That's what we prepare. Every day we work on a different midah. We work on our Derech Eretz Kadma Latorah. That's what we're preparing ourselves to be the kind of people that the Torah can make an impression on, and therefore become Torah and not just be mere Chachma. And that also impacts on the second question. Talmidei Rabbi Akiva were supposed to be the pipeline of Torah Shabbal Peh for all future generations. All Torah Shabbal Peh went through the conduit of Rabbi Akiva and his students. Why did the Rabbanos give the Torah in such a way that most of it was given orally and passed down orally? Why couldn't it have been all written down? Today we have, Shas, Art Scroll, right? Most of Torah Shabbal Peh has been committed to writing. Why couldn't the Rabbanos give it all in writing? There are many answers. But one answer, I think, is because the Rabbanos didn't want people to think that Torah is just a bunch of facts, that you could curl up with a volume of Torah and integrate the facts into the gray matter in your mind and you have Torah. No. Torah has to be something you live. So therefore, the only way you can really learn Torah is from a living Sefer Torah. In Dom Maharav, Lamalach Hashem Tzvakos, Yavakish Torah Mipiu, you had to learn it from a Rabbi who lived the Torah. So you saw a living Sefer Torah and you understood that's what Torah is. Torah is something that has to be integrated into your very being and your personality and your character and your behavior in order to be Torah. So that's one of the concepts of Torah Shabbal Peh. And Rabbi Akiva was the one who taught Yohavta Reyacha Kamocha Zeh Klal Godel BaTorah. How in the world can you love somebody else like yourself? The halacha is not like that. The halacha is you come first. If you need money, you need tzedakah, and you only have a certain amount of money, then you come first. You take that money for yourself. If you have something getting lost, and your parents or your Rabbi has something getting lost, and you can only save one of them, you save yours first. You come first. Avedos chakodet. So you always come first. So how can it be that you love somebody else equal to yourself? One of the ideas is that I don't necessarily have to love you for who you are. Your personality may rub me the wrong way. What I love about you is re'acha b'torah mitzvahs. Yohavta l're'acha. We share something in common. We both have the potential to be living Sifrei Torah. That's what I admire and love and hold precious about every fellow Jew and Jewess. I love their potential Sefer Torah, because it doesn't make a difference if it's my Sefer Torah or their Sefer Torah. A Sefer Torah is precious because it's a Sefer Torah. That's what it means for you. I love the potential Sefer Torah that you are. And the proof to that is that Ben Azai countered what Rabbi Akiva said and said, I have a bigger cloud, Godel Batorah. And what is that? The following pasuk. Zeh Sefer told us Adam. Ki b'tselem Elokim Moses Adam. This Torah is the book of human beings, because people were created in the image of God. That's what Torah is. It's Sefer told us Adam. It's the book of people. People have to become living Sifrei Torah. The same idea that Rabbi Akiva said, only much more direct. So here are the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, the ones who were supposed to be the conduit of Torah Shebaal Peh. They heard their Rebbe say, "V'yohavta re'acha kamocha," and they're in the middle of Sfiras HaOmer, which teaches this lesson, that in order to be Makabel Torah, you have to prepare yourself, your Derech Eretz, your Midos, that the Torah can become part of you. All of these things point to the same idea. A human being, a Jew, a Jewess, can be a living Sefer Torah, has to be a living Sefer Torah. And what was their sin? Lo nohagu kavod zeh b'zeh. Doesn't Chas v'Shalom say that they disrespected each other. Doesn't say nohagu shelo b'kavod zeh b'zeh. I'm sure they respected each other a lot more than we respect each other. But they failed to realize on their madrega how each and every one of them was a living Sefer Torah. And the kavod that deserved by a living Sefer Torah, they didn't give. Something less than that they gave. That's what means lo nohagu kavod zeh b'zeh. They didn't give the full measure of kavod. That means they didn't understand what the purpose of Torah Shebaal Peh was. They didn't understand what the Rebbe said, "V'yohavta re'acha kamocha," and they didn't understand the purpose of Sfiras HaOmer. And that's why they couldn't fulfill their purpose of being the conduits of Torah Shebaal Peh, and that's why they died during Sfiras HaOmer specifically, because their death, represented a lesson in what Sfiras HaOmer is all about. So when we mourn the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, we're not mourning the tragedy of their death. That we mourn on Tisha B'Av, like with all the other tragedies of Jewish history. But we are learning the message of Sfiras HaOmer by understanding what they couldn't teach us in their life. They taught us in their death, and that's a tremendous schus for the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, that they become the tool to make us understand what we're counting, what we're preparing. Even though we don't know the body or didn't know the body of Torah, we're not preparing the Chochmah of Torah. We're preparing ourselves with our Derech Eretz, with our Midos Tovos, to be the kind of people that the Torah can make an impression on and be real Torah and make us into living Sifrei Torah. So that is the connection between the Avelis of Talmidei Rabbi Akiva and the preparation of Sfiras HaOmer for Matan Torah. The connection is that we should really understand what we're preparing, why we're preparing, and Amir Hashem, with that in mind, we can work on ourselves and be the kind of people who at least want the Torah to make an impression, who are on the road to becoming living Sifrei Torah. And that's what the Rabban Shalom wants. And in Yirtz Hashem, on Shavuos, when we re-accept the Torah, our yearly re-acceptance of the Torah, we'll do it in a way that we're accepting Torah, not merely Chachma, Torah like fire, that will make an impression on us and make us into budding, living Sifrei Torah. That's why a Talmid Chacham is not called a Chacham. He's called a Talmid Chacham, my Rebbe said, Rav Gifter. He has to be a Talmid of the Chachma. The Chachma has to teach him not just that he has to possess that wisdom. Any questions? Anybody, you can unmute yourself if you have a question, and I'd be happy to answer it or try to answer it.
I have a question.
Yes.
Why are we then acting in mourning for the Talmidim or not for the Talmidim during Sphira, if we said we're mourning them during Tisha B'Av, really, and now that this is just to learn
there's
the lesson?
two purposes for the mourning. One is to mourn the tragedy that we do on Tisha B'Av. The second is to understand why they died, and by going through the motions of mourning, right, we understand that they died, and we look into the idea of why they died, and that is a chizuk to teach us the purpose of Sfiras HaOmer, and that's what we're mourning. We're mourning in order not just to cry of the tragedy, but to learn from the tragedy what it teaches us about this period of time of Sfiras HaOmer. But the way that we learn that is by going through the motions of Avelos. Okay, I want to thank Batsheva Goldkor for inviting me, and there was somebody else I'm not familiar with who's also part of the ones who organized this. It should be a tremendous chus for all of you and for Klal Yisrael, and we should be parted from this Magefa very, very soon and be able to get back to having Torah face to face and not through screens. Should all have a Chodesh Tov and a good Erev Shabbos, and in Yirtzeh Hashem we should meet on happy occasions.
Amen. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.